Yes, there is.
The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on August 17th, 2022, just sort of staggering our way through this Biden administration, just one crazy thing after another. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. So today in our upper right-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. We have no Screaming Eagle of Freedom today. He has some other issues he has to take care of. But in his place, we have special guest G'day Bulgak. He is an activist for liberty on college campuses. He is works with Young Americans for Liberty and Americans for Prosperity. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. This particular episode, we wanted to focus a little bit on all of this government safety and protection, and it all seems to be on the backs of young people. So we've gone through all of this COVID stuff. It's just this adventure in government mismanagement, I guess you'd say, over the last few years. And, one of the groups of people who are impacted the most yet had the least risk are younger people. Kids seem to have almost no risk at all with respect to COVID, and young people very, very low risk, for kids in their 20s. And yet they're the ones who are being asked to shoulder the brunt of all of the costs, whether it be financial or otherwise. And let's jump into the first story. And that is a study by the Pew Research Center, where they and this is from the end of last year, where they talk about COVID harmed kids' mental health, and schools are feeling it. And they talk about having way less psychologists at these schools to help the kids than that may need it, and and all of the suffering that kids are dealing with because of all of these erratic changes in their lives and uncertainty. You talk about kids who essentially, they thought they were on one track, finishing their school maybe to go do something, and boom, the economy's upside down because our know-it-alls in government have shut it all down. So anyways, I'm going to kick this to you guys. Do you guys want to comment a little bit about some of these COVID costs that have been put on young people?
This study demonstrates why the government should stay out of our lives, okay? And they should get out of education in particular, which is a side issue to what we're really talking about. In the sense that whenever the government touches something, it always turns to a disaster. I would use another word, but I know we're going to go on the show. But it always turns into a disaster. And here we are now. Our young people, which is supposed to be the next generation, which is supposed to be taking this country forward, now they have been irreparably damaged by this nonsense involving the shutdown of the schools. And why were the schools shut down? The schools were shut down because the teachers' unions jump and scream all over the country, and next thing you know, the schools are shut down. And it was shut down on the people who were the least at risk, which are the young people. In most of the developed nations around Europe and other places, they didn't shut down the schools, not at least certainly not to the extent that we did. Now our kids are months and months behind in terms of their educational, maybe a year or so, in terms of their educational achievement and accomplishment. And not only that, now their mental health is suffering. Suicide attempts are up. Actual suicides are also up.
And Leon, according to this article, they're saying that suicide attempts among adolescents jumped 31% in 2020 alone.
There you go. So that is a natural result of the isolation that our young children are placed under. They were isolated from school. They were isolated from the interaction with their friends, that social interaction that they so need in their development. They were isolated from it. So we cannot be surprised now at this result. But this is a serious government failure. This is our next generation that is being damaged and hurt by this nonsense of the COVID lockdowns.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I will say that even so from my experience as a college student, the fact that the COVID lockdowns have ended in most places, it's not in immediate reversal. It's not like, bam, everything is fixed. We still have all these after effects. I know a lot of my friends personally have a lot of mental issues, and it's increased dramatically as a result of COVID. And that's the sad part about this, that these effects won't just go away in a year or 2 years. These will last for decades. And it's just because we had this bad policy, just because we were a little bit afraid and we just jumped the gun.
That's a very good point you're just making about the it's not in reversal. That is so true. And you know what is even worse about this? In some places, they're still requiring kids to wear masks. They're still requiring it. They must wear masks in the schools. This is madness on steroids.
Yeah, it's especially when we're seeing that, it doesn't matter. You get the oh gosh, what is it? The vaccine, and some of these guys have been quadruple vaccinated, and they're still getting it. I mean, we're looking at our
Exactly.
world leaders getting it, and they're the most protected people, and they're some of the oldest people too. I mean, you look at
Yes.
Biden, and he recently had it, and he survived, and we're literally going to destroy little kids' education and their developmental experiences growing up because there's some small fraction of people who are hyper who are just hyper concerned about this. It's absolutely
It's
astounding.
insanity. I took the vaccine. It was my choice. I took the vaccine. I was even boosted also, but I got COVID after the fact. Okay, Biden took the vaccine. He was also boosted. He got COVID. His wife right now, just Jill Biden, the first lady, just tested positive for COVID, who is also vaccinated and boosted. I mean, all this crap that they put in, they're making us go through, and then the kids are suffering because of it. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And by the way, Biden did promise too that the vaccine would eradicate the COVID, and he said we'd win
Exactly.
the war against COVID. Sounds like just about every other war that the government is engaged in, and just about the way it's gone. Oh.
Well, anything, the war on drugs, the war on poverty, the war on COVID. Where have it all ended? Where?
When they officially call it a war, I think we can project this is going to go on for 20 years at least.
Yeah.
30 years.
I mean, and Biden also promised that he was going to cure cancer.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the results of that.
Hopefully he doesn't call it a war on cancer. It'll get worse. And what's he going to do at the end of this war? Is he going to abandon all the vaccines and needles on the battlefield as he runs off into the sunset?
Yes. You're gonna create Afghanistan right here. In the United States.
Well, another area too that is really taking a hard shot for young people. It's not just their mental health, but it's their earnings going into the future, and this is part of what's probably affecting their mental health. A lot of, and maybe we could get this image up on the screen. But there was this UK article from Economics Observatory. It looks like, and that's. They're literally talking about the effects, both short and long term, of what it's going to do to the lifetime earnings of graduates. And they're talking about a lot of these students losing several percent of their lifetime earnings for this. And that's a lot of money. If you figure that this could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that kids will be losing over their lifetime because of these terrible policies by government, and just saying, hey, shut it all down. This is hysterics, safety hysterics, safety theater. And by the way, it's got a huge price tag, and young people are going to pay for it. What do you guys think about that?
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that we already, as young people, have suffered because of the overinflationary policies that we've been instituting. We're earning less than our parents did at our age, pretty much. our career prospects are already on the decline. And the fact that this is what's going on right now only makes the problem even worse. Like, I couldn't dream of owning a house, even though my parents own a house. And so that's just as a result of bad government policy all around.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
by the way,
I truly wish, you know, all of the people, all of the guilty parties in this disaster could be sued, okay, for the lost earnings. Okay, I wish we could sue the teachers unions. I wish we could sue the government, all the state governments who engage in this nonsense, all of the administrators in the school. I wish we could just sue them to smithereens for kids who are going to suffer because of this disaster. And you see, maybe I would have understood if you say, well, we're going to just shut down the school for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they actually did that, but then they're going to open it back. You know, maybe we were, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were a little bit uncertain about the severity of the virus and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have enough information. I would have accepted, even though it would have been wrong, I would have accepted that explanation. But this thing went on for a year and a half. Even after we knew that little kids are the least vulnerable, even after we knew it, it was still going on.
Yeah.
I wish we could hold some of these people accountable. I really do.
But this is a slippery slope, Leon. Once you abandon those principles, and I mean, I was just apoplectic when I heard 2 weeks to stop the spread, and that was what they were talking about initially. And I mean, you know, we kind of we actually had a show in studio when we were doing Libertarian Counterpoint, and it was me, Leon, and our invisible hand, James, and we were talking about as we saw COVID coming on the horizon. I think it was in March of that year or something, and we said, you know, there's probably going to be some quarantines, and you know, is it, we were debating the ethics of quarantining somebody who's sick, and we were just absolutely shocked that they quarantined everybody. You know, I mean, they locked down the economy, and that was, you know, the issue. You know, once you throw out those principles and you say, hey, you know, we're going to lock stuff down, and you know, you don't have a choice, and we'll tell you, you know, what your risk you know, valuation should be. At that point, you know, there's no end to it, and that's what we saw. You know, 2 weeks
Yes.
turned into forever, and
Yes.
for some people in some jurisdictions, it's still going on with
It's still
masks
going
and
on.
other things
Exactly.
like that. It's
Yes.
crazy.
They're still asking kids to wear masks and all that kind of stuff, and some places, you know, we have to social distance and all that. I mean, all those things are, the social distancing and is okay, but you know, the mask wearing and all these other things, and they're still going on. Little kids who are suffering because of this. Look at the mental condition some of these kids. They need to see the teacher's face for them to learn, connect with the teacher and to learn. But they're putting these masks on their face and telling them this is the environment in which they're going to strive and survive. No, it's failing them.
Well, you know, Daily Wire had a great video where during the Super Bowl where they put it out, and it showed, or actually it was just after the Super Bowl, and they compared Los Angeles County, where they had a mask requirement in place, and they showed all the little kids who were just, you know, going through this horrific experience as little children, you know, 3 or 4 year olds, 5-year-olds don't understand any better, being forced to keep masks on, you know, and of course,
Yes.
kids getting nasty stuff all over their face all day, and you know, just having that mask, it's just, oh my gosh. And then they go to the Super Bowl where the responsible people who put these things in place were, and nobody was wearing them. You know, you had governor, or excuse me, the mayor there in Los Angeles.
Eric Garcetti.
Yeah, and I believe he said, well, I think it was him who said, well, it was okay because, you know, when I was I only had my mask off when I wasn't breathing or something.
Yeah, he said he held his breath. He said when he took the picture, he held his breath. So that was okay. Okay.
Yeah, but you had celebrity after celebrity who just went on tirades about people wearing masks, shaming people, and then here they were, you know, and they're having a good time out in public.
Gavin Newsom was in French Laundry with people all around, and this was during the height of the pandemic. People all around him, no mask, no social distancing, and these are the people who implementing this garbage upon us.
Yep. And he was at the NFC Championship game too, just before the Super Bowl, doing the same
right.
Thing.
He held his breath the whole time, so it was okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. My apologies.
I think that's how he legislates. He just holds his breath. And that's how all these good ideas come out.
Yeah.
Waits until his face turns blue, and then whatever,
Yeah.
wherever the dial lands, that's what they're legislating.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, let's move on to another topic then. On unless you guys have anything more on this one, on some of the stuff that's going on college campuses, and this one takes us to a community college in California, where the administration came down on kids for putting up posters that essentially questioned the veracity of socialism. You know, a lot of these ideas that are being taught on the college campuses, and you know, essentially they were talking about issues of how many people had died under communist regimes, and you know, some of the oppressive conditions that people were living under, and the school administrators forced them to take it down. And it looks like FIRE got involved. That's Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and helped them in a lawsuit against the California's Clover Community College. So that's where this one was taking place. And this is actually a Young Americans for Liberty group, Gadai. So you know, maybe there's a little bit of a connection for you on this one too. But
Young Americans for Young Americans for Freedom, I think.
Oh, this was Young Americans for Freedom. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I guess I misread that one. Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, YAF versus YAL.
Yeah.
What's good to know that there's more than one organization out there helping kids out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, you know, what do you guys think about this? I mean, just one more instance of, you know, the colleges being loaded against free speech for conservatives, it sounds like, or liberty-minded people.
But you see what is happening here, and this incident really typifies what's going on. So first of all, they want to preach this garbage. They want to tell us socialism is so great and wonderful, but they also do not want anyone to disagree with their contentions. No one should debate them. No one should ever come up with any ideas that are different from the accepted narrative. So on this campus here right now, the administrators planned this, made up this, fabricated this story as to why these people had to take the poster down. Imagine that on a public campus, a government-funded campus, they are trying to infringe upon people's free speech rights on a publicly funded campus. This is the government doing this to these young kids. God help us. What is America coming to when we no longer have a free speech right? When we have government officials plotting, actively plotting, fabricating stories to violate people's rights. I hope these people are sued to hell as much as we can to change these policies that are infringing upon the rights of young people and all Americans.
Yeah. My dad, he was in the Soviet Union, and when he went to college, he was actually investigated by the KGB for being a dissident. And even he says that America has gotten very bad. He's like, oh my God, these California campuses are crazy.
Well, you know, it's like people stopped reading Orwell here or something. I mean, you know, we have these lessons that have been given to us from 50, 60 years ago. And the idea that people are just like out to lunch on this. They somehow think that, hey, you know, colleges are the place to force ideas on people, not to have rich debate and discussion about
exactly
the best ideas. So yeah,
I don't even remember, Jason, but we in one of our shows we discussed a woman who was from North Korea. I think her name was Yaomi Park or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things she said when she landed in America, and you know, I think she went to Colombia or someplace like that. One thing she said was that this place have gone mad. She said she's seen things like things that used to happen in North Korea. She didn't expect this in America, in the United States of America, where freedom is supposed to be such a big deal. And I was really fascinated by her words. And now, you know, and the reason why I thought about this is because what Gadai said, his father, who was born in the Soviet Union, is saying that here in America, we are seeing things happening to us in terms of our freedoms than worse than what was going on in the Soviet Union. This is scary thinking. This is scary thoughts. This is unbelievable.
Yeah. My both of my parents were in the Soviet Union, and they're telling me when I was going to school, like, don't say anything about politics. Just agree with the professor all the time. Just do whatever they say. Just I'm telling you, it's gotten that bad. It's the campuses are in effect the same institutions as the Soviet Union were. These awful communist propaganda machines. That's all
Yes,
they are,
yes,
and it's just appalling.
Well, you know what I find particularly scary about all this too is the redefining of words on the fly in order for
yes.
and government being involved in this, and the idea that it's like we just had this discussion about inflation the other day, and it's sort of like, well, we all think we know what inflation is, and suddenly the oh god, the intellectual class is telling us that, oh no, that is a definition that you thought inflation was the other day. No, it's not inflation anymore.
Anymore? No, yeah,
And
no.
this is kind of what's happening. It seems like that's happening on the college campuses too. I mean, it just kind of redefining these words and concepts, and these trigger zones and everything else. I just, oh man, it's very anti-intellectual. It feels
Yeah,
like.
but Jason, but you're absolutely right about the redefining of words on the campuses. But it's not only happening on the campuses; it's happening
Oh
throughout
yeah,
society. I
yeah.
mean, whereas what is a woman is being redefined, reproductive rights is there's the new definitions for that. There's, I mean, equal opportunity is being redefined. I mean, just look at it. All of these things. We just talked about inflation and recession. All of those things are being redefined. All so whenever the ruling class have no substance left in their arsenal of things to do, all they try to do is to redefine the words, and then everybody will say, "Yes, that makes sense," and everything now is nice and wonderful. This is dangerous stuff. This is 1984 in the
Yeah.
making. That's what's going on.
Yeah, no, it feels very Orwellian, all of this stuff.
Orwellian,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, yes. Well, let's jump to our one of our last stories here, real quick. So, yeah, maybe we could get an image up on this. But in this, a federal appeals court is upholding rules, and I can't remember exactly where the rules are in effect here. Let's see, is this? It looks like it's in D.C., I guess,
Yeah,
where
yes,
they are.
it's in DC. It's in District
Yeah.
of Columbia. Yes, DC. Yes.
And they are requiring daycare workers to have college degrees. And I just, can't imagine. I mean, to talk about degree inflation, this is just, we're looking at all of these cases where people, one after another, are having issues with paying off student debt, and maybe getting degrees for things they don't need, and in quite frankly, that we're seeing literally stories, and this one is from 2019. It looks like it was last updated here from CNBC, but they're talking about 30% of student borrowers can't keep up with the debt after just 6 years. And it's like, maybe it's because you're requiring all of this extra education that's not necessary to do a lot of jobs. What do you guys think about this? It just seems pretty crazy.
Gadai, why don't you lead us off? Go ahead.
Okay, I would say that for degrees, I've experienced this as a lot of other people. Basically, you need a college degree now to do the same jobs that you would have been able to do with a high school degree only 40 years ago.
Yes.
And yes, it's just absurd how, for example, the price of college has gotten up because of the federal loans, making it easier for colleges to increase their prices. And yeah, I need to get a master's degree now to do something that maybe 10 years ago I would only needed a bachelor's degree to do. And that's just extra expense and extra time wasted on my part going to college to get knowledge that I don't even need and I won't even use. So it is very sad.
The whole concept of trade. I mean, I think you touched on this without realizing the whole concept of trade, like being a plumber and an electrician and all that kind of stuff. They seem to have taken a back seat now. Everybody is not pushing this thing. Everybody have to have a college degree. Now, I went to college. I mean, I have a graduate degree also. I did that. But college is not for everyone. Okay, college is not for everyone. And these rules and regulations are these idiots in DC in this particular case. But it's going on in other parts of the country too. They're not pushing on everybody where to be a daycare worker, right? To take care of little kids. All of a sudden, to change diapers, as the story indicated, to change diapers and to and to feed a little kid. You need a college degree for that. Don't you see the madness in this regulation? This is insanity on steroids, because the government does nothing but regulate, and they regulate businesses to the point where they can no longer function. And this is what's going on here in California, right? I know this story was from DC, but here in California, what do you think the government is doing right now? They are regulating so much that people are moving like I left the state and went to Texas. One regulation after the next, piling upon each other. None of it making any kind of sense and any sort of economic sense. People are having difficulties just having a normal functioning life because of these regulations. And that is what is happening in Washington, D.C. right now with these daycare workers. They are destroying the livelihoods of people. And this is what the government does. Whenever they touch something, it's going to turn into a disaster.
I have an additional suggestion for a regulation. Maybe they should also have McDonald's fry cooks have a nutrition degree.
Would they still work at McDonald's if they did?
Yes. There you go. There you go. Yes. Uber driver should have a degree in mechanical engineering or some crap like that.
Yes.
Yeah, just insanity. But speaking of some of this insanity, and this perfect timing to jump into our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and this is where we generally find something kind of silly that somebody has said, and just to give us a good laugh on the way out of the show. But so apparently CBS Morning News, and they don't attribute exactly who it's to here, but they tweeted out, they said they ran a story where they said today's children are 30% less aerobically fit than their parents were at their age, a new study finds. Oh, okay, maybe I can believe that. And they said, but the study points to climate change and rising temperatures adversely affecting childhood obesity as children spend less time exercising outdoors. At least they didn't blame COVID for it, okay? I guess the science has decided this one is climate change and not COVID. Sure. Yeah. It's what doesn't climate change have an impact?
I mean it's unbelievable. The climate have been changing since the beginning of time, but suddenly this particular change in climate, I guess, is a disaster that about to happen. Oh my goodness gracious! People are getting fat. People eating too. I guess they're eating too much. So we have climate change, and people are eating too much. So the climate is giving us more food. Is it? Is it giving us more food?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say too. I used to be horrifically obese. I lost 80 pounds. I was fat not because of climate change, but because I ate pasta, chips, and ice cream. Okay,
there you go.
So as soon as I stopped, maybe the climate went down. Maybe the climate change stopped, and I lost all the weight.
But you didn't realize that it was the climate that made you crave ice cream.
Exactly. When I retired, I was 20 pounds heavier than I am right now. I did not realize that it was the climate that was causing me to eat all that fried rice from that little Chinese restaurant around the corner from where I used to work. I didn't know it was the climate causing that. I wonder who I could sue for this. Okay, I can sue somebody.
There's just one thing that's kind of serious about this, and it does make me just take pause a little bit. But if we think about any actions actually the government took lately that might have caused more obesity in kids, it might be slapping masks on them and forcing them to stay indoors and by themselves for the last few years. That it might have something to do with it, maybe, but we can't blame that, so we've got to blame climate.
Yeah. I did want to say, when I got COVID, I did have one of the side effects of not lost taste. Everything started tasted rancid. And so that helped me lose all the weight because chocolate started tasting rancid to me. And you know what? COVID has done more for my health than Dr. Fauci ever has.
You heard it here first. The new Gadai COVID diet.
There you go.
There you go. Lose weight.
That's right. That's right. The new diet. The new diet.
Well, I think that's. Oh, sorry. Did you have anything more, Leon, to say?
No, I was just gonna. It's
Okay.
fine. It's the new
Well,
diet.
Gil,
That's all.
well, thanks so much for joining us, Gadai. Did you have any final thoughts before we exit the show, or?
I think that's my last thought. I recommend the COVID diet. 10 out of
There
10.
we go. Well, you heard it here first. So thanks so much for joining us again today, and we hope you'll see us the next one. And until
Yes,
then,
indeed.
stay free.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.